The late afternoon sun, usually a welcome golden haze that softened the edges of the world in Veridia, had instead turned the intersection near the grocery store parking lot into a blinding, metallic glare. It struck the windshields and chrome bumpers of the stationary cars, rebounding into a hostile, shimmering distortion of reality. One moment, I, Elara, felt the familiar warmth of my grandson, Leo's, small hand, sticky with the residue of a melted lollipop, tucked securely in mine as I guided him between parked cars. We were navigating the mundane, familiar labyrinth of a Saturday grocery run, the air thick with the scent of exhaust fumes and distant bakery bread. The next, that ordinary world shattered, a shriek of tires, impossibly loud and tearing through the quiet afternoon air, ripped through the mundane soundtrack of our lives. Then, a blur of metal, a sedan, out of control, skidding sideways with horrifying speed. Pure animal instinct, primal and instantaneous, seized me. There was no thought, only reaction. I threw myself forward, covering Leo, my body a shield, the world narrowing to the fragile, trusting weight of his small body beneath mine. The impact wasn't direct for us, thank God, not the head-on collision that would have been catastrophic. Instead, it was a glancing, violent blow from the side of the spinning sedan, a brutal shove that sent us skidding across the rough, unforgiving asphalt of the parking lot. I felt a searing, immediate agony bloom across my back, spreading like wildfire, 1,000 tiny fires igniting simultaneously as the coarse pavement tore at my skin and muscle. Leo cried out, a sharp, startled sound, not from the initial terror of the near miss, but from the harsh, painful scrape of that same cruel pavement against his cheek. We lay there for a moment that stretched into eternity, tangled together, the smell of burnt rubber and fear thick in the air, the sounds of chaos slowly filtering back in. Distant shouts, the wail of approaching sirens. 10 minutes felt like an eternity. They moved in a blur of pain and confusion. The paramedics were efficient but impersonal, their questions clinical, their hands firm as they stabilized me, careful of the raw, bleeding wound on my back. Leo, despite the terrifying experience, was mostly just scraped and bruised, crying more from shock and discomfort than serious injury. We were in a sterile, echoing hospital hallway, the air smelling of disinfectant and sickness, when Beatrice Dubois, Marcus's mother and Leo's other grandmother, swept in like a force of nature, a storm front of expensive perfume and barely contained fury. There was no inquiry about our well-being, no soft words of comfort for her grandson, who was being examined by a harried-looking nurse on an emergency cot. Her gaze, sharp and accusatory, bypassed Leo entirely and fixated on me, still dazed and aching on the gurney next to his. Her voice, usually a carefully modulated instrument of passive aggression and thinly veiled superiority, was a raw, screaming accusation, tearing through the quiet hum of the hospital. "Can't you even watch a child, Elara? What good are you for anything? You couldn't even manage a simple trip to the grocery store without something like this happening. If my precious grandson had been seriously hurt, if he had suffered even a scratch more than he did, I'd make sure you paid for it. I'd sue you for everything you have." My back felt like it had been flayed open, a pulsing, infernal agony beneath the coarse, rough fabric of the hospital gown they had put on me. Every breath was shallow, every movement a potential spike of pain. I couldn't even formulate a response, couldn't find the words to defend myself against the sheer, unadulterated venom of her attack. It was in that choked, painful silence, surrounded by the indifferent efficiency of the hospital, that my daughter, Anya, finally arrived. Her eyes, usually so expressive, so capable of conveying a myriad of emotions from joy to frustration, were wide with pure panic as she rushed past me, a blur of anxious energy. Her attention was solely on Leo and the doctors and nurses surrounding his emergency cot. There was a brief, urgent conversation, medical jargon I couldn't quite grasp through the haze of pain and shock. After confirming his injuries were minor, a few nasty scrapes and bruises, thank the heavens, Anya finally turned, her face pale, her voice strained but rigidly controlled, the perfect picture of a dutiful daughter managing a difficult situation. "Doctor," she said, her voice directed towards the medical staff, My mother-in-law has high blood pressure. She just got really upset. Could you possibly check her vitals, please? She seems quite distressed." Not a word to me, not a glance in my direction. I lay there on the gurney, biting down on the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted the metallic tang of blood. The pain in my jaw a dull counterpoint to the excruciating, sharp stabs in my ribs, each breath a carefully calculated risk. And in that moment of profound physical and emotional agony, of feeling utterly invisible and utterly disposable, a single defiant thought, fragile but persistent, surfaced in the wreckage of my mind. Maybe it's time I started living for myself. Maybe it's time I stopped being everyone else's safety net, their doormat, their convenience. A doctor, brisk and focused, his face a mask of professional urgency, strode down the hallway, his voice curt, as he navigated past the small knot of people around Leo's cot. "Please stop blocking the hallway. The patient needs to be prepped for surgery immediately. She has a deep wound and is losing blood quickly. We need to operate." Anya froze, her brow furrowed in confusion, her attention still solely on Leo. "But Leo just has scrapes and bruises," she said, her voice bewildered. "Who's bleeding that badly? Who needs surgery?" A nurse, her voice sharp with urgency, materialized beside her, holding out a surgical consent form, her pen poised. "Not your mother-in-law. Your mother, Elara. She's the one in critical condition. She's lost a significant amount of blood from a laceration on her back. We suspect a broken rib may have complicated the wound. We need to operate immediately to control the bleeding and assess the damage. Sign this now, quickly." The nurse thrust the form into Anya's hand. Anya stared at it, then her eyes flickered towards me on the gurney, a look of shock finally registering on her face. Beatrice, meanwhile, had perched herself on a nearby bench, pulling Leo onto her lap, despite his wiggling discomfort, cradling him possessively. Her face was a mask of open disdain, directed squarely at me. "Oh, please," she scoffed, her voice dripping with sarcasm, loud enough for everyone in the immediate vicinity to hear. "She's just putting on a show, Anya. Don't fall for it. Couldn't take care of my grandson properly, and now she's pretending to collapse to dodge responsibility and make it all about her." "Anya, was your mum always this dramatic when she was younger? Was she always this fragile and attention-seeking?" Anya's mouth opened, then closed, a silent fish out of water. She hesitated, her gaze flitting back and forth between me, lying injured and bleeding, and Beatrice, radiating contempt. The moment stretched agonizingly. I waited for my daughter, the child I had raised, the person I had dedicated my life to say something, anything, in my defense. To tell her mother-in-law to back down, to show even a flicker of concern for the woman who had just shielded her son with her body. But the words didn't come. Finally, Anya murmured, her voice low and rushed, directed somewhere between Beatrice and the floor. "Let's focus on getting her treated. We can talk about everything else later, when she's feeling better." Later, when I was feeling better, when I was no longer a bleeding inconvenience. I lay on the gurney, every bone feeling splintered, the pain so sharp, so absolute, that I almost bit through my lip again to keep from crying out. Still, despite the agony, despite the crushing disappointment, I reached out, my hand trembling slightly, and found Anya's arm. I forced my voice to be steady, to project a calm I didn't feel, a strength I barely possessed. "Don't worry about me, Rachel." I used her original name, the one from before she became Anya, in this new life dominated by Marcus and Beatrice. A subtle, perhaps desperate attempt at separation, at clinging to the girl she used to be. "It's just a quick surgery. I'll be fine. Go stay with Leo. He needs you. All right?" Her eyes, finally meeting mine for more than a fleeting second, shimmered with unshed tears as she watched me being wheeled away towards the operating room doors. Whether they were tears of genuine concern, guilt, or just the stress of the situation, I couldn't tell. And in that moment, it didn't matter. As the anesthesia took hold, the bright, harsh hospital lights dimmed, the sounds of the hallway faded into a low drone, and I felt myself slipping away, sinking into a cold, silent depth, like the bottom of a deep, dark lake. Giving up control felt strangely peaceful. When I opened my eyes again, the world was soft and muted, the harsh edges blurred. I was in a hospital room, the light filtering through drawn curtains. A stranger occupied the next bed, separated by a thin curtain. A woman, perhaps in her late 40s or early 50s, Clara, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She saw I was awake and offered a quiet greeting. "Oh, good, you're awake." You bounced back fast. My mom had the same thing a few months ago after a fall. She was unconscious for 2 whole days before she woke up. "You look much better already." I tried to speak, to thank her, but my throat was raw, scraped clean like sandpaper, each attempt at a word a painful rasp. "Where's my daughter?" I managed, a hoarse whisper that felt alien in my own mouth. Clara frowned slightly, thinking. "Your daughter? Oh yes, she was here for a bit. I think her mother-in-law had a blood pressure episode, got really upset. Your daughter went with her to pick up medication from the hospital pharmacy. Said she'd be back. Her mother-in-law. Of course. Even in her absence, Beatrice Dubois held court. I looked down, feeling a strange, heavy weight on my leg. It was immobilized in a splint, a bulky, cumbersome thing that stretched from my ankle to my thigh. A nurse came in just then, checking my vitals, adjusting the foot of the bed. Her tone was reassuringly casual, almost dismissive of the trauma I had experienced. "Feeling all right, Mrs. Warren? Just a minor fracture in the tibia, with some nasty abrasions and blood loss from that back wound. Nothing too serious. We fixed you right up. Give it 10 days or so. We'll remove the splint and you'll be good to go. Just take it easy." Only then did I allow myself a shallow exhale, a tiny release of the tension I hadn't realized I was holding. A broken leg, a deep wound, significant blood loss. Yet my first thought wasn't for myself, it was for them. Anya had only just gotten her career on track, finally starting to earn a decent salary after years of relying on Marcus and, more often, me. Marcus was constantly away on business trips, his work unpredictable and demanding. Leo, barely 3, was at that clingy, chaotic age where he demanded constant attention, a whirlwind of energy and need. I needed to get better, fast, get back on my feet, get back to holding down the fort, get back to being the invisible scaffolding that held their lives together. Just as that familiar, self-sacrificing thought settled comfortably, almost automatically, back into my mind, I heard Beatrice Dubois' shrill voice cutting through the quiet of the hospital hallway, carried clearly by the unforgiving acoustics. It was like a siren call of my impending doom. "Anya, you need to have a serious talk with your mother. A serious talk. She can't keep being this careless with the child. It's unacceptable. Leo got lucky this time. It was just scrapes and bruises, easily fixable. But what about next time? If something truly serious happens, if he ends up permanently injured because of her negligence, I won't let it slide. I will make sure she pays for it, one way or another." Anya's voice floated in next, usually firm and assertive when speaking to me, but now sounding meek, compliant, almost apologetic, directed at Beatrice. "Yes, Beatrice, I know. I'll talk to her. I'll make sure she understands how serious this was. I'll make sure she's more careful going forward. It won't happen again." Beatrice's tone sharpened further, seizing on Anya's acquiescence. "And another thing, Marcus is already busy enough with his work, constantly traveling. Now that your mum's laid up in hospital, who's going to handle the housework? Who's going to cook and clean and do the laundry? Who's going to watch Leo when you're at work? No one has time to babysit her. She better heal fast. Leo still needs looking after. We can't afford daycare, and I certainly don't have the energy at my age." Clara, the younger woman in the next bed, who had heard the entire hallway conversation, and her mother, Mrs. Albright, who had arrived while I was being treated and was now in the next bed, fell silent, the conversation from the hallway broadcasting clearly into the room. The air in the room grew thick with discomfort, heavy enough to choke on. It was suffocating. I rolled onto my side, the movement sending a fresh jolt of pain through my back and leg, burying my face in the hospital pillow, trying desperately to hide the tears that silently traced hot paths down my cheeks, soaking into the thin fabric. But my ears refused to shut out what came next. Anya's final words, soft, resigned, and utterly, irrevocably crushing. "Don't worry," her voice floated in, directed at Beatrice, a casual, almost flippant dismissal of my entire existence. "She knows her place, my place." The words hit me like a physical blow, harder than the car accident, harder than the fall onto the asphalt. They yanked me back into the suffocating shadows of everything I had endured for the past 3 years. If I truly knew what it meant to know my place, I would have said no the day Anya called me, her voice thick with tears, bordering on hysterical, begging, "Mom, I can't take this anymore. I'm pregnant. I'm alone. I don't know what to do. Please, please come help me. Please just come live with me and help me." I would have said no when she and Marcus were struggling financially, claiming they couldn't make ends meet on his sporadic income and her non-existent one, and I took it upon myself to cook, clean, manage their household, buy all the groceries, and cover their unexpected bills without complaint, without ever asking for a single penny in return. I never should have spent the past 3 years living in their home, an unpaid maid, a full-time, on-call nanny, sacrificing my retirement, my peace, my independence, never once asking for thanks, never once being offered it. But now, she told someone else, her voice casual, resigned with such ease, "My mom knows her place." Those 4 simple words, spoken with such a lack of empathy, such an assumption of my subservience, hit me with the force of a physical blow, yanking me back into the suffocating shadows of everything I had endured, everything I had given. The tears kept falling, silent and unseen, soaking into my pillow, a silent testament to the years of sacrifice, the years of love poured out, all of it dissolving without a trace, leaving no mark, no value in her eyes. Beatrice strode into the room a few minutes later, radiating an air of self-importance, a plastic shopping bag rustling importantly in her hand. She approached my bedside table, her movements stiff with self-righteousness, and placed 2 items on the surface: a single slice of pale, flabby white bread and a small bottle of vivid, almost neon yellow mustard. "Here," she announced, her voice condescendingly sweet, as if she were bestowing a great gift. "I just made it for you. Isn't this your favorite combo? Simple, filling, not greasy, much better for you than heavy hospital food." She lifted the plastic bag slightly for emphasis, as if showcasing her thoughtfulness. "I even bought the mustard from my favorite brand. You eat this. It's way better than roast chicken or steak. You need something simple after your little mishap." Clara, the younger woman in the next bed, who had heard the entire hallway conversation, nearly choked on the water she was sipping. She stared at Beatrice, then at the bread and mustard, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You're seriously giving her mustard on toast? She just had major surgery. She needs nutrients, protein, something gentle. Not that." Anya, who had followed Beatrice into the room, actually chuckled, a light, dismissive sound that grated on my nerves. "You guys don't know my mom," she said, turning to Clara and her mother, sharing this anecdote as if it were a charming, quirky detail about my personality. "She loves this stuff. She can eat slice after slice without stopping. It's like her comfort food." I watched her smile casually as she shared my supposed favorite snack, painting it as a harmless eccentricity. And just like that, a different kind of pain flared down my back, sharp and intense, not from the surgery, but from a memory, as if someone had pressed hard on the fresh incision, twisting the knife. I shivered involuntarily, despite the warmth of the room, but the memory was clearer, more vivid, more agonizing than the physical pain. Anya, years ago, pregnant and sobbing hysterically, over the phone from Marcus's cramped apartment. "Mom, I can't take this anymore. When I was pregnant, his mother made me eat this, white bread with mustard, 3 times a day. She said it was all she ate when she was pregnant and it was good for the baby. I couldn't say no, she just kept putting it in front of me, and Marcus just defended her, said I was being difficult. Please, please, have mercy on me. Come help me, Mom. Get me out of this." He had always known. Anya had told me. Mustard on toast wasn't a simple, filling snack or a quirky favorite. It was a symbol of control, of humiliation, of being forced to accept something lazy, meaningless, and degrading under the guise of care. Beatrice hadn't made it for me. She had offered me a symbol of her power, a reminder of my place, and Anya, by accepting it, by framing it as my favorite, was complicit. I said nothing, just stared at the bread and mustard, a bitter taste filling my mouth. Anya's hand gently touched my arm, her touch light, hesitant. "Mum," she said, her voice soft, a return to that strained, controlled tone. "You don't like it. Beatrice made it specially for you." Her eyes pleaded with me, a silent, familiar plea I knew all too well. "Don't cause trouble. Don't make a scene. Don't embarrass me," just like back in their house. Every time Marcus complained the food was too salty or too bland, even though he had requested it. Every time I didn't sterilize the baby bottles 10 times over, as Beatrice insisted was necessary. Every time Leo cried because I let him play too long, and he scraped his knee or threw a tantrum from being overtired. Anya would give me that same look, yielding, apologetic to them, silently begging me not to ruin the fragile peace she tried so desperately to maintain, a peace that always came at my expense. But this time, I couldn't do it. Not anymore. Not after what she had said in the hallway. Not after the pain in my back, the pain in my heart. My voice was a low rumble, rough from disuse and the raw scrape of intubation, but steady, deliberate. Rachel, I used her original name again, a conscious decision to draw a line in the sand, a separation from the Anya who stood before me, complicit in my humiliation. Someone who's just had major surgery shouldn't be eating anything spicy or harsh like mustard. And white bread with mustard has zero nutritional value. It's empty calories. It's not food for healing. I didn't accuse, I simply stated facts, clinical and cold, turning her supposed act of kindness into a medical assessment. She opened her mouth to respond, perhaps to defend herself or Beatrice, but her expression shifted from feigned guilt and concern to thinly veiled irritation and embarrassment. I had refused to play my part in her performance, refused to accept the offered crumb of care. Beatrice let out a sharp, mocking laugh, a sound like breaking glass. "Unbelievable," she sneered, stepping forward, her face contorted with anger now that her generosity had been rejected. "You nearly got my grandson killed, and now you've got the nerve to sit there and act like you're some kind of nutritional expert, some kind of hero. Don't forget Elara. Leo is my grandson too. The fact that we haven't held you fully accountable for your negligence, for putting him in danger, is more grace and mercy than you deserve. We bring you food, something simple and easy, and you nitpick, you complain. Fine, I'll take it back." She snatched the bread and mustard from the bedside table with a flourish. "If you end up starving, that's on you. Don't expect me to bring you anything else." She spun on her heel and left the room without another word, the plastic bag rustling indignantly. Right behind her, Marcus walked in, his expression grim. He held a small stack of papers in his hand, official-looking documents with hospital letterheads. He dropped them on my bedside table with a hard thud that made me flinch. His tone left absolutely no room for debate or discussion. It was curt, businesslike, completely devoid of warmth or empathy. "Elara," he said, addressing me directly, something he rarely did unless it involved finances or logistics. "These are the hospital bills we've covered so far for your treatment, $8,700. I need you to make sure you pay me back as soon as you're discharged. I've already spoken to the billing department and the nurse here. I've arranged for all future expenses related to your care. Any follow-up appointments, physical therapy, medication, to go directly to you. I mean," he added, a hint of a smirk playing on his lips, "I assume you wouldn't want people thinking you're leeching off your son-in-law, living off our limited income, right?" I couldn't speak to begin with, shocked into silence by his cold calculation and public demand for repayment. But now, my chest tightened so hard it felt like an iron band had been clamped around it, squeezing the air from my lungs. I stared at him, my vision swimming slightly, breath hitching in my throat, as he turned and walked out of the room, following his mother, leaving me alone with the weight of the bills and the crushing weight of his words. Anya watched them go, a frantic, desperate look flickering in her eyes. She turned to me, her voice low, intense, filled with a desperate kind of anger and fear. "Are you happy now, Mom? Look what you did. You get in a car accident while you were supposed to be babysitting, something that should have been a simple errand, and I'm the one who has to live with the shame and the consequences in Marcus's family. You pissed off my husband, demanding gratitude you don't deserve, and now his mom stormed off, upset. Can you, for once, just think about how this affects me, my position in this family, my marriage?" I tried to respond, tried to find the words to articulate the enormity of her self-centeredness, but a violent cough tore out of me before I could get a word in, a harsh, ragged sound that shook my entire body. The pain from my stitched-up back flared so intensely it sent a wave of nausea through me, sweat beading instantly across my forehead. Clara, the girl in the next bed, who had been watching the entire scene unfold with wide, horrified eyes, reacted instinctively. She rushed over to my bedside, her own water glass in hand. "Ma'am, stop," she said urgently to Anya, then turned to me. "Ma'am, don't try to talk right now. Just breathe. She just had surgery. Do you want her stitches to tear open?" I took the glass from Clara's trembling hands, forcing myself to focus on the cool water, swallowing a careful sip, forcing the painful tightness in my chest back down, forcing the nausea to recede. Then I looked up, past Clara, and met Anya's eyes directly. My voice shook slightly from the effort, from the pain, but my words were clear, deliberate, and carried the weight of years of unexpressed resentment. "Anya," I said, using her chosen name this time, accepting that was who she had become. "You're always, always asking me to think about you, about how everything affects you. But have you ever, just once, in the past 3 years, thought about me? About what I might want? About what I might need? About what I gave up?" I paused, gathering strength. I could have lived a peaceful, quiet retirement in my own home, surrounded by my things, my memories, my friends. Who asked me to uproot my entire life, sell my house, leave behind everyone I knew, and move here, across the country, to live in your cramped apartment? My voice grew stronger, the words flowing now, a torrent of pent-up frustration. "Julian was right. I should have listened to him, but you needed me, and I came. And what was my life for 3 years? Marcus's shirts had to be hand-washed because they were delicate, remember? Leo's clothes needed special detergent, carefully sorted colors and whites. You like spicy food, but he doesn't, and neither does Beatrice, so I had to cook separate meals. The kid needed his own damn toddler meals, pureed or specially cut, because he was a picky eater. Every single day for 3 years, who woke up first? Who made breakfast, got Leo ready for playgroup, dropped him off and picked him up? Who came home and cleaned your house from top to bottom, did all your laundry, cooked every single meal for everyone, did the grocery shopping with my own money, and never once, not a single time, got to sit down with a hot cup of tea or read a book, for pleasure without being interrupted or asked to do something else? I took a shaky breath. Do you know why I took Leo grocery shopping this morning? Because I couldn't bring myself to leave him alone in the house. Not even for 15 minutes while I ran to the store. Not because you asked me to, but because I felt responsible. Because for the last 3 years, Anya, I've been the one living like his mother, and not yours. You gave birth to him, but I raised him, physically and emotionally. And you couldn't even say thank you. Anya rubbed her temples, her face a mask of frustration, deflecting my words, refusing to engage with the substance of my accusations. Okay, I get it. You're tired. You made sacrifices. But I'm stuck in the middle, Mom. Can't you see that? Caught between you and Marcus and his family. It's impossible. Just then her phone rang, a shrill, unwelcome sound cutting through the tense silence. She picked up without moving far from my bedside. The phone pressed to her ear, but the voice on the other end was loud and impatient, carrying clearly through the quiet hospital room. It was Marcus. "When is your mum going to pay me back? How long do we have to wait? We need that money. Are you coming or not? I've got work tomorrow. I don't have time to sit around this hospital and wait for her to wake up and give me the money." Anya turned her back quickly, lowering her voice to a hurried whisper. I'm transferring it now, Marcus. Calm down. Don't worry, I'm on my way. Are you in the parking lot? She hung up with a sigh that sounded more like exasperation than relief, and shoved her phone back into her pocket. Turning back to me, her expression hardened, returning to that desperate, pleading demand. Mom, please, if you really truly don't want me to end up divorced and struggling, alone with a kid in a city where I have no support, just pay Marcus back, please. He's stressed. We're barely getting by. Besides, she added, as if this were the most logical thing in the world, the ultimate justification for her demand, your money's going to us eventually anyway, isn't it? When, it's our inheritance. The cup of water Clara had given me was still in my hand, and in that moment, something inside me snapped, irrevocably, completely. The years of quiet resentment, of swallowed words, of ignored needs, of being taken for granted, it all culminated in that single, explosive act. With a force I didn't know I possessed, I hurled the cup. The water splashed across her face, cold and shocking, momentarily stunning her into silence. Get out, I said, my voice low and shaking with fury, raw and ragged, cutting through the stunned silence. Get the hell out of my sight now. I never want to see you again. Anya stood there for a moment, stunned into stillness, dripping, wiping her soaked face with the back of her hand, her eyes wide with disbelief. What is wrong with you? She finally whispered, her voice trembling, not with fear, but with pure, outraged fury. Are you insane? You threw water at me. Yes, perhaps I was insane. Insane for letting myself be trampled in this family for 3 long years, and still, somehow, deep down, hoping someone, anyone, might finally see me, might finally care. Still coughing from the pain in my back, I reached blindly for the phone on the bedside table, my fingers fumbling with the buttons. My hands trembled as I dialed the only number I had memorized by heart, the number that represented my real life, my real home, the person who truly loved me. The line rang twice before a calm, steady voice answered. Julian's voice, sounding slightly distant, as if from another world. Julian, I managed, my voice choked with emotion, rough with pain. It's me. Elara, come get me, please. Come take me home. Tears streamed down my face now, hot and fast, unstoppable. I should have listened to you. I should have listened when you warned me not to stay, not to let them take over. I didn't listen. I stayed, and I regret it. Oh God, I regret it so much. Anya's eyes went wide with panic. She lunged forward, reaching for my phone, attempting to snatch it from my hand, her face contorted with sudden, desperate fear. Mom, no. What are you doing? This is your home now. You can't just leave. If you leave, what happens to Leo? Who's going to take care of him? In the struggle, my hand hit the speaker button. Julian's voice, calm and steady on the other end, suddenly rang out, loud and clear through the entire hospital room, audible to Anya, to Clara, to anyone in the hallway. Anya Foster, Julian's voice was sharp, cold, and laced with a fierce, protective anger I hadn't heard directed at her in years. You ran off to marry that man, Marcus, swearing you'd never come crawling back to us, that you didn't need us. You made your choice. Do you have any idea at all, how much that hurt your mother? Do you have any idea how much her staying there, her sacrificing everything for you, has cost her? Do you have any idea how much I have missed her? Do you have any idea how proud I am of her right now for finally saying she regrets it? For finally choosing herself? What the hell did you do to her? What the hell did you do to make her give up even her last shred of dignity, her last hope that you might actually care, and call me, asking to come home? His voice was raw with emotion, with years of suppressed frustration and pain. Early the next morning, Julian called to confirm that he and our nephew Finn would be driving through the night and would be coming to pick me up at sunrise. He wanted to make sure I was ready, that this wasn't a decision made in pain and anger that I would regret. I assured him I was certain. The moment I hung up, a wave of hunger I had stubbornly refused to acknowledge, masked beneath all the emotional turmoil and physical pain, finally made itself known. A loud, insistent growling in my stomach. Clara in the next bed heard it and chuckled softly. She offered to run out with her mother, Mrs. Albright, who was visiting, to get me something to eat, something simple the hospital didn't offer. I accepted gratefully, a small act of kindness from a stranger, meaning more than years of neglect from my own family. Once they left, the room fell silent again, a peaceful, empty quiet, broken only by the steady beat of my own heart. I lay there, watching the early morning light filter through the blinds, feeling a strange sense of calm settling over me. Suddenly, the curtain around my bed was yanked shut with surprising force, and Anya dropped to her knees beside me, her face pale and desperate, her eyes wide and glistening with fresh tears. It was another performance, but this time, the desperation felt real. "Mom," she whispered, her voice low and urgent, pleading. "Mom, please don't do this. You know my job is unstable. I barely make enough to scrape by. Marcus earns more, sure, but his mum's health is really bad now. Half of what he makes goes directly into her medication and living expenses. We're drowning, Mom." Her eyes gleamed with a frantic, calculating hope. "If you leave, what about Leo? What about me? How can you just abandon us? How can you stand to watch me, your daughter, a woman, try to hold this family together all alone in a city where I have no one, absolutely no one? How could I bear it? Of course I couldn't. It was precisely because I couldn't bear the thought of her struggling, of Leo not having the support he needed, that I ended up here, broken and bleeding in this hospital bed in the first place. It was my inability to say no, my ingrained self-sacrifice, my misplaced sense of responsibility. But that was the old me. I slowly turned my head, avoiding her gaze, focusing on the muted sunlight coming through the window. My voice was low but resolute, steady. "Anya," I said, using her name again, a sign that I acknowledged her presence but not the emotional blackmail. "If you still consider me your mother, if there's even a sliver of genuine love or respect left in you after everything that's happened, go home and start packing up my things. Just the essential clothes, my books, a few personal items. When your father arrives tomorrow morning, I'm leaving with him. And I'm not coming back." I paused for a breath, the weight of the finality in my words settling over me. Then I added, even more calmly, removing the last vestige of emotional reaction from my voice, "Maybe one day, years from now, when my back heals completely and I've completely lost my mind, maybe then I'll come back and play your servant again. But right now, all I want, all I need is to go home. To my real home. Your father and I have been together for over 30 years. This is the longest we have ever spent apart, all because of you, all because I came here." Anya stood frozen, kneeling beside the bed, her tears suspended on her cheeks as if stunned into stillness by the quiet, absolute finality of my words. You're really leaving," she muttered, the dramatic pleading draining away, replaced by a stunned disbelief. "Even after I begged you like this, even after I told you I have no one, you call yourself a mother. You would leave me to drown alone with Leo." I clenched my jaw, the muscles aching. I stared at her, this child I had protected and cherished every day of her life, the child for whom I had sacrificed my own happiness, my own future. "You're a mother now too, Anya," I said, my voice quiet but firm, throwing her own question back at her. "And you want to ask if I'm worthy, if I'm a real mother? Ask yourself, Anya, are you? For 3 years, who stayed up all night with your son when he was sick, when he was teething, when he couldn't sleep? Who used their retirement savings, their hard-earned money, to support your whole household, to keep a roof over your head, food on your table, and clothes on your backs? You dumped your child on me, expected me to take over the role of mother entirely, and couldn't even bring yourself to say thank you. Not once did you ask if I was tired, if I was overwhelmed, if I was lonely, if I was happy." Anya shot to her feet, teeth clenched, her face contorted with a mixture of anger and desperation. "So, you're really doing this?" she demanded, her voice sharp, accusatory. "You're abandoning us?" I nodded without hesitation, holding her gaze. There was no wavering. The decision was made. She inhaled deeply, a shaky, ragged breath, then said, as if she had finally, decisively, made up her mind, as if this were a perfectly reasonable transaction, "Then you have to leave your pension card behind. I'm struggling here, Mum. I'm in a city I barely know, with no family support, on a salary that's nothing. Marcus's money is tied up. We were counting on your pension to get by. Give me your card, and I'll let you go. It's the least you can do. I stared at her, stunned into silence for the second time that day. My throat closed up, thick with disbelief and a fresh wave of pain, not physical this time, but a deep, aching sorrow. She was actually standing at my bedside, the daughter I had raised, the woman whose life I had propped up for years, measuring my right to leave, my right to reclaim my own life, against a plastic card and a bank balance. A piece of plastic, my worth, my sacrifice, reduced to a number on a bank statement. I had raised her to be honest, to work hard, to stand on her own 2 feet. I had sacrificed to get her into a top college, paid for her tuition, sent her money every month, on time, without fail. Then, sophomore year, she showed up pregnant, dropped out, no explanation, just moved in with Marcus. I thought she was suffering. I thought she was lost. So I softened, I opened my wallet, increased her allowance from $2,000 to $4,000 a month. Every break she claimed she'd be working, building her future. I believed her, never questioned it. Not until after Leo was born did the truth slowly emerge. Marcus hadn't finished school. He was drifting, constantly traveling for some ill-defined job. She had dived headfirst into a marriage without even a wedding, without finishing her degree, without a plan. His mother, Beatrice, had called my daughter shameful to my face, said she had ruined her son's future, trapped him. I, who had lived a clean, honest, respectable life, had to endure that kind of humiliation in my old age. I swallowed it all for Anya, told myself she was just lost, misguided, and I, her mother, was her last safety net, her only hope. But now, here she stood, not asking how I was feeling, not expressing gratitude for what I had done, just demanding my money, treating my pension as an inheritance she was entitled to even before I was gone. Is this truly the daughter I raised with my own hands, the daughter I loved more than life itself? I opened my mouth, 1,000 painful questions forming, but before I could say anything, she said coldly, her eyes hard, completely devoid of the pleading she had used moments before. If you won't agree, then I'll discharge you tomorrow morning. Myself. I'll tell them you're fine, that you just need to rest at home. I'll hide your phone, and let's see how Dad's going to take you home when he gets here. That was who she was. Bold only when it came to threatening me, when it came to leveraging my love and my fear of her consequences against me. The manipulation was so blatant, so cruel, it took my breath away. I said nothing, just stared at her for a long moment, the silence stretching between us, heavy with the weight of all that was unsaid, all that was broken. Then, slowly, deliberately, I nodded, and with a trembling hand, I reached into the bedside table and handed her the pension card, the small plastic rectangle that represented my financial security, my independence, my future. Anya's face lit up as if she had hit the jackpot, the transformation startling in its suddenness. The anger and desperation vanished, replaced by a triumphant smile. She snatched the card from my hand. "Mom," she said, her voice suddenly sweet, almost syrupy. "Mom, I knew you'd come through for me. I knew you wouldn't abandon us. Thank you." So, I was only a good mother, only a source of comfort and security, if I gave her money. Anya was a fool, a naive, self-absorbed fool. Did she not know that a pension is tied to the person, the individual, not the plastic card? Once I reported it lost or stolen and requested a replacement, what she had was just a piece of worthless plastic, a useless souvenir of her attempted theft. But I didn't plan to teach her that lesson, not anymore. She would learn it the hard way, as she seemed determined to learn every lesson. I would just take this as the final price I paid, the cost of tuition for the painful education I had received in the true nature of ungratefulness and misplaced devotion, the price paid for raising a child who only opened her mouth to demand more, to take without thanks, to consume without reciprocating. After getting the card, she moved with shocking efficiency, as if eager to complete the transaction and make her escape before I changed my mind or Julian arrived. Within 2 hours, all my belongings, neatly packed into a single suitcase and a couple of shopping bags, had been gathered from her apartment and delivered to my hospital room by Marcus. He left them inside the door without entering, a brief, silent exchange with the nurse, and then he was gone. Anya even tossed in a bottle of milk and a pack of energy bars, with a generous, performative air, placing them on the bedside table where the bread and mustard had been. "Here, Mom," she said, her voice still falsely sweet. "Something to snack on tomorrow for your trip." I didn't respond. I couldn't. The words were stuck in my throat. She didn't say anything else, didn't linger, didn't make eye contact. She just gently closed the hospital door behind her and walked out of my life. The truth is, I never expected anything from Anya. Not gratitude, not repayment for the money or the years of service. All I ever truly wanted, all I ever hoped for, was respect. The acknowledgement of my humanity, of my sacrifices, of my love. But she took every ounce of love and patience I had to give and wrung it dry, leaving nothing but an empty, aching void. For the rest of my life, I vowed in that silent room, I would live only for myself, for Julian, for the life we deserved. As I settled into Finn's car the next morning, the sunrise painting the sky in soft hues of pink and orange, and watched the hospital shrink away in the rearview mirror, becoming smaller and smaller until it was just another building in the distance, the entire city gradually fading like the backdrop of an old forgotten photograph. I felt it for the first time in years. A lightness in my chest, a lifting of a weight I had carried for so long, I had forgotten what it felt like to be unburdened. I was free. Coming home felt like waking up as someone entirely new. The house felt different, even though it was filled with our familiar things. It felt like ours again. Julian cooked nutritious meals in all kinds of creative, delicious ways, fussing over me with a tenderness that brought tears to my eyes. He even hired a physical therapist to come to the house and help with my shoulder and back recovery, ensuring I regained full mobility. Within 2 weeks, I was up and walking on my own, slowly at first, then with increasing confidence. One afternoon, as I paced slow circles in the living room for exercise, building my strength, Julian sat watching me from his armchair, a book open on his lap, but his eyes fixed on me. His eyes were suddenly glistening with unshed tears, reflecting the sunlight streaming through the window. "Elara," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "We're not young anymore. We're getting old. Wherever we go from now on, whatever we do, we go together. No more sacrificing, no more living apart." A lump rose in my throat, a painful counterpoint to the healing in my back. Before I could answer, he reached over and handed me a tissue. "It was my fault too," he added, his voice soft, accepting his share of the blame. "I was so frustrated with Anya, with the situation, with feeling helpless. I didn't want to move with you at the time. I was being stubborn, but you couldn't let her go. You felt you had to be there. But I should have insisted. I should have supported you better. If you still, even now, wanted to care for her, wanted to stay, then I would have been the one to care for you, no matter what. But look at you." He looked down at me with so much tenderness in his voice, in his eyes. "You were only at her place for 2 years, and your hair's turned completely white. It was too much for you." I grinned, a genuine, happy smile, something that had felt impossible just weeks before. "You're still blaming me for letting our daughter have a baby in college, aren't you?" He cleared his throat, scratching his head sheepishly. "Not blaming, not exactly. More, I just feel sorry for her. She worked so hard in school, she had so much potential, and then she married and had a child so young, before she was ready. She never even had a chance to figure herself out, to see the world, before she got stuck, tied down." I gently held his strong, calloused hand, the hand of a man who had worked hard his entire life, who had built things, repaired things, who had always been my rock. "Do you remember, Julian? Before you retired, before all this happened, we talked about it for years. You said that when we were both done working, when we were finally free, we'd settle in Cypress Cove, find a quiet little place, build our retirement together. Do you still remember that dream? Do you still want that?" He sighed, a long, weary sound, but there was a hint of hope in it. You could never let go of Anya, Elara. What was the point of me coming here alone? It wouldn't have been the same without you. I shook my head slowly, firmly. The time for hesitation was over. I've let go now, for real this time. The cord is cut. I won't look back, not anymore. I want to go with you to Cypress Cove. I want to make it our home. Together. Just you and me. His eyes blinked, as if he couldn't quite believe what he was hearing. A slow smile spread across his face, radiating pure joy. You mean it. You mean it. Even Leo. You won't see him anymore. Can you really do that? I nodded, the decision firm and clear in my mind, painful but necessary. Don't you remember what his grandmother said, Julian? Loud enough for the whole hallway to hear. She made it crystal clear. Leo is a Dubois, not a Warren, not an Albright. He belongs to their family. When I had that accident, if I had died, or even been seriously hurt, and if Leo had gotten so much as a bruise, how would I have faced the Dubois family? They made it clear they would have held me accountable. They have claimed him. And as for Anya, I paused, the words weighing heavy on my tongue. We've done our duty as parents. We raised her, we educated her, we supported her, financially and emotionally, for her entire life. We gave her every opportunity, everything in her life now, her marriage, her financial situation, her choices. It's all her own doing. She's an adult. It's time she learns to take responsibility for her own life, to sink or swim on her own merits. I can't save her anymore, and I won't try. We went to the bank a few days later, opening a new joint retirement account and closing the old pension account that had been given to Anya. It felt like reclaiming my independence. The doctor said my recovery was excellent, and we booked our long-awaited flight to Cypress Cove, where a few retired friends had already settled. There, we bought a small house with a garden, just as we had planned. We settled in, planting flowers, growing herbs, and even putting up a clothesline, a simple luxury. We biked the trails, hunted wild mushrooms, and shared laughter with our neighbors. It was everything we had dreamed of. Then, Anya called. Her voice was frantic. "Mum, what did you do? My pension payment didn't come." Before I could respond, Julian grabbed the phone. "Anya, your mother opened a new account. It's her money, and she's not here to solve your problems," he said calmly. The call ended with Anya screaming accusations at us. "You're abandoning your own family," she cried. The next day, Marcus called, demanding I pay him back for my hospital bill. I refused to engage in his manipulation, and instead reminded him of all the money I had spent on his family. "Let's talk about what you owe me," I said, detailing all the financial sacrifices I had made. He tried to dismiss it, but I was done. "Don't call me again," I told him. "If you or Anya contact me again, I'll take legal action." That night, Julian and I escaped for a hike in Silver Creek. We enjoyed the peace, leaving the drama behind. But when we returned, Anya was in our house, having broken in. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. She claimed she had nowhere to go. Julian and I stood firm, refusing to let her back in. "This is our home," I said, my voice steady with resolve. She screamed at us, blaming us for her struggles, but I had heard enough. "I've given you 3 years of my life," I said, "and this is how you repay me." Julian added, "We paid our dues. Live with your choices." Anya refused to leave until Julian threatened to call the police. We finally got them out, but the air felt heavy with their presence. We gathered their things and put them outside, reclaiming our space. The house felt lighter, but the journey wasn't over. We spent the next days restoring our home, clearing out the bad energy. We received a call from Martha, who had reported the break-in, but we declined pressing charges, focusing instead on our peace. Life in Cypress Cove resumed, and we found comfort in our routine, our neighbors, and the simple joys of gardening, biking, and quiet moments together. Months passed, and we distanced ourselves from Anya and Marcus. We didn't engage with the viral posts they shared, letting the judgment pass us by. Our friends in Cypress Cove defended us, and we stood by our decision to prioritize our peace. Anya's manipulative attempts faded, and we were finally free. One autumn day, I saw a post of Anya and Marcus together, holding Leo, their family still intact. Julian and I exchanged a glance, acknowledging that their lives were theirs, and ours was ours. I smiled faintly, feeling no regret, only peace. We were home, in a place we built together, finding joy in every quiet moment.